First, let me quote Martin Luther King Jr. From his letter from the Birmingham jail, which most school children should, at this point, be familiar with. He wrote, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly." Now, the quote that most of us remember is the first part of that: "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere," which leads me to what is happening, God forbid, what is happening in the Middle East. Now, the Middle East is defined, it's become defined as the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, I believe is the gentle way it's put. This is not a conflict, but I'll get to it in a second. This began, I believe most of this began Monday. This is Wednesday. And the tensions were there in Jerusalem between Palestinian protesters and the neo-fascist Israelis who were there to provoke the Palestinians. And this all veered into military conflict on Monday. That's when a local skirmish in this decades-long battle for control of Jerusalem escalated into rocket fire and airstrikes in Gaza. Now, it's hard to know how many Palestinians have been killed. But as of Tuesday, I believe there were roughly 30 Palestinians who had been killed by Israeli rocket attacks and Israeli assassins. Of those 30, 40, however many it was, a huge number were children. There's a reason for this. Gaza is one of the most densely populated strips of land on earth. And I think the average age of the people who live in the Gaza Strip, so-called, the average age is probably under 30, maybe under 25. It's a very young population. So when Gaza is indiscriminately attacked with missiles and rockets and mortars, the death toll is going to include numbers of children. Honesty is something that around this issue is very hard to find in American media or in American politics. It's an atrocity against a whole bunch of people, millions of people, the Palestinians, an atrocity that all of us in this country participate in unknowingly. We don't understand. We're not aware. We hear one side. If there's such a thing as two sides, when a country is invaded by occupiers, are there two sides to that story? And then the occupiers say, well, we're going to take this land because in our holy texts, it says this land is ours. Well, who gave it to you? God. What? Who gave? God? God gave you this land? I mean, I hate to tread even lightly on the religious aspects of what is going on in the Middle East, because to the original monotheists, the Jews, and their two offshoots, Christianity and Islam, this is the holiest place of holiest places, Jerusalem, right there. So I'm trying to avoid that, okay? I don't want to get into a Christian, Jew, Muslim thing here. I'm talking about the politics of it. Now, is it possible to separate the politics from the religious saturation of this? Maybe not. But this is what I've tried to do in my education about the Middle East. We are involved in this, truth seekers. We, you and me, and I realize we have problems in this country. I get that. Why am I talking about the Middle East? Why am I not talking about the atrocities being committed here? I get so goddamn tired of talking about the atrocities being committed here. I don't know who to talk to anymore. But atrocity committed anywhere is an atrocity committed everywhere, to paraphrase Dr. King. After a raid by the Israeli police on the Aqsa Mosque left hundreds of Palestinians wounded, militants in Gaza, militants being Palestinian people who have had this thrust on them for 70 plus years. Now, these young people in Gaza, they had their parents, their grandparents, their great-grandparents telling them over and over and over again the reason why they live in one of the poorest parts of the planet, because of embargoes by the Egyptians and the Israelis preventing the people in Gaza from living, not from getting wealthy, from living. So the militants in Gaza responded to this attack on worshipers in the Al-Aqsa Mosque by firing a barrage of rockets at Jerusalem, most of which simply do not have the range to get that far. So they fall in the desert south of the cities in Jerusalem. Some of these rockets got through. And how did the Israelis respond? Airstrikes, missiles, overkill, disproportionate response. I mean, what is proportionate response? When a people who have been occupied for 75 years and told, get the fuck out of here. What is proportionate response? What are they supposed to do? What are native peoples in this country? What were they supposed to do when they used their little bows and arrows up against machine gun fire by the U.S. cavalry? Oh, God, there goes the blood pressure. So what happens? I mean, what happens? Let's take any huge Catholic church in the United States, any huge Christian congregation, and all of a sudden it's invaded by crazy son of a bitches like me. And we have rubber bullets, and we have truncheons, and we have whips. And we start attacking the people who are in there praying, the Christians who are in there praying, whether they're Catholic or Protestant makes no difference. And we start beating them and kicking them out of their own church, their own holy spot. What would happen? What would happen? I'll tell you what would happen. There would be a Christian uprising in this country where people like me would be hunted down and beat to fucking death. That's what would happen. You know this as well as I do. When you poke a sharp stick into the eye of a religion, you are asking for teeth and fangs to come at you with all the force and power it can generate. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. What are the Palestinians fighting for? They're fighting for their country, their land, the place where they live, the place where 10, 20, 30 generations of them lived. I put together a YouTube, well, I didn't put it together, but it was a broadcast that I did a number of years ago. I got a phone call from a Jewish woman named Mimi, and I forget, maybe Minneapolis or someplace, but she called in trying to defend the actions by the Israeli Defense Forces against the people of Gaza or in the occupied territories or against Palestinians in general. And she thoroughly pissed me off. And I responded to what she said. And my YouTube chief, Hernan, in Argentina, pulled that from the program and put it together as a YouTube video. It's available. Go to Mike Malloy YouTube channel. It's there. And I think so far it's had, 1.5 million views. I don't know. But in that YouTube video that I made all those years ago, it explained, for my benefit and for the people listening at the time to my program, it explained my position, my interpretation of what happens if you're living in your house and all of a sudden a stranger shows up and says to you, get out of your house and get your family out of my house and get your pets. And I'm going to give you 24 hours. If you're not here, I'm going to come and burn your fucking house down. Get out. How do you respond to that? And you know that if you don't get out, they will, these strangers, forcibly drag you out, humiliate you in front of your family, beat you, maybe kill a member of your family. Get out. Oy. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcasts. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.